So I'm now going to throw out to you in the room. Does anybody have any questions on anything we've touched on, or any other particular questions you want to ask any of the panel? There must be somebody. Go ahead.
My question is at the exact other end of most of the work that Women in Racing has done in the past few years. Brilliant work. And I wish it had been around an awful number of years ago. When are you going to consider the other end of the scale? Because ageism is just as rife in this industry, if not more so.
Salisbury Racecourse, for anyone who has anything to do with that, have done some brilliant work around menopause. They have something called Walk and Talk, which they introduced and has been absolutely brilliant. And we are in the pipeline on work for women later in their career as well. It's
amazing when you look at, until recently, the two prime candidates for the biggest jobs in the world were 80-plus-year-olds. They were definitely aging males.
They weren't great examples, though. I think the younger woman is looking better.
Does ageism, I mean, can I ask what age you're thinking of? Because actually menopause is probably midlife.
From where I'm looking at it, yes, but I think once you turn 60, you're competing with people who don't have that imposter syndrome because they grew up, thankfully for them, in an age when it wasn't an issue. So you're competing with people who haven't got anything like the amount of experience, but aren't saddled with some of the doubts that some of us might have had. So I think that 60 mark is a really difficult one.
I've been told by a trainer, anyone over 40 in the industry is old and past it. And sat there and said it to my face, and I'm like, this has got to change. We're losing women who've gone and had families, and they're not coming back. And all that knowledge and experience has just gone.
Wasted.
Yes.
Has anyone ever done a survey on, senior people in racing, male, female? Because there are a lot of aging men in top roles in racing.
There's a new study on
as in life.
There's a new study coming from Loughborough University about representation of women in the horse racing industry, which is going on currently. Yeah.
Result, I'm sure.
I mean, when I went to Welsh Parliament and was asked to sit in and have a talk with them, it was me surrounded by males. And they listened, and I've emailed, the fellow at the BHA trying to get back in there and follow up all these talks and see what's happening. But they've fallen on deaf ears at the minute. But I am pushing and pushing to get back in there to try and help and improve, just for the younger ones coming into the industry. I said there's just not enough, this is for Wales, for them there to bring people in. But it has
and I think
3
the shadow
men.
boards you were talking about are really interesting, because that does give the young woman, man, a sort of an opportunity to see how business works at the top, and also, as you say, to challenge the thinking.
There's a good example from the fashion industry where, now I forget which two companies it was, and I might be committing some sort of horrible libel, but I think it was Gucci and Dolce & Gabbana, and one of them took on a shadow board in the early part of the 2000s, just at the point at which social media was becoming a thing, and they recognised that they needed to get on board with the new social media platforms. Sales went through the roof. They had young influencers at the time when it was becoming a thing to have people on the street wearing your clothes, getting photographed, that being a really good way of marketing your fashion. Whichever other company it was didn't do that, got left way behind. Their sales went like that and like that. And so it just was one of those examples of when the knowledge and insight and wisdom from somebody who's in their 20s is completely different from the knowledge and insight and wisdom of someone in their 60s, and leads to a completely different trajectory of a company.
Just a racing question. Are you also going into stud work with Racing Home? Because I used to work in stud work, and actually one really big factor for why I left was because I didn't see any women at the highest level who I could compare myself to, who had, obviously not everyone's had families, I'm not saying that, but I personally do in the future, and I didn't really see any kind of comparisons to work towards.
Yeah, so we
focused on racing now. So.
Yeah, definitely, and Eileen is probably a good person to mention in here. Like in terms of working with bloodstock and studs, Anna Kerr at the National Stud has been a really big advocate.
Like my accidental mentor.
Well, that is wonderful to hear, and I think definitely getting studs involved and on board is a really important area. I think it's easy in racing to look at horses in training and training yards, but actually the breeding industry is obviously a massive part of the picture, and just incorporating all of that together, yes, is the short answer.
I'll pipe up there if I can for a minute. So I'm from a stud background and a coach as well. And I think that what you said is really interesting, because I actually had my first employee maternity in 20 years, which is amazing, because it's all the women that work with us. And we used Racing Home, which was fantastic because I knew about it through women in racing. But it very much still feels that racing is over here and stud is over here, and we're completely disjointed. Neither know about each other. We've had trainers come to the farm and say, "Oh my God, your foals leave their mothers at 6 months." I'm going, "Really? Are you serious? You didn't know that?" And vice versa. I go to training yards and see things that I didn't know about. And there's a huge crossover that could happen when people aren't able to ride out anymore for different reasons. There's staff there that have great experience and could cross over into racing, into stud farms, and vice versa. But what I wanted to come back to, so Racing Home was brilliant for me. It was absolutely amazing because it was new to me, and it was also brilliant for my employee. So it's a great, website for both sides. But just quickly back to the great panel, and it's been amazing listening to you all. We got so good at horse welfare, and worried about our social license, and we were so brilliant at that. We got horsepower up there and the website. We are so bad at people welfare. Yeah. So bad. And it's business critical. And nobody sees that. And that's why it's great to hear, and some of you on the panel are committed to that, to make changes there, because the people that are coming into our industry now, as we know, will not stand for the culture that we have currently. They just won't. Mm-hmm. So it's business critical that we look at that more deeply. Thank you.
Yeah, can I just touch on that, coming back to, you were saying, Sarah, it comes from the top, and we need to get the trainers to help how their workers communicate with each other. Could there be introduced training days for trainers, say Newmarket and Glamorgan in West Country, all areas of, so not just sort of teaching the youngsters, but the old school trainers go to training days, go to talks like this to sort of enhance and strengthen how important it is that working environment is kept healthy and kept consciously. Or is that just something?
Oh no, 100%. But you get them there.
Try and get them in the room.
Just get them to read an email, because they come through and I see them and I talk about it. Oh, we ain't got time for that.
I mean,
I'm busy.
It's something that would probably have to come through the BHA itself.
Yeah, and unless it's made mandatory and something that's got to be done to get your licence, it's not going to happen.
Because
it's not going to happen.
I went through the licence process, and we, they were good on, trying to say that a healthy environment, you keep good staff, you need a good environment, you give, good guidelines, and it comes from the top and lead by Christian.
So,
was
that on the trainers course?
Yeah.
Because that exact module that they run on the trainers course has been run for trainers and assistants at the British Racing School. Liking the nods over there. I'm thinking I'm a bit off-piste here. I'm slightly off-piste, but I'm not that off-piste because I went to it, so I know. And there was some excellent training. It was actually some of the best training I've ever been to in my life, and I've been to a lot. And I'm not absolutely certain that is the answer. So I'm not absolutely certain that mandatory training is the answer. I'm not saying I really know what the answer is, but I feel like that actually trainers are among the most licensed, regulated, overseen folks that have to cheerlead for the industry, and it's terrible prize money, recruit more owners in, have a horse in training. You can maybe, if your horse is good enough, maybe have a chance of winning a share of this terrible prize money. And at the same time, at the other end of it, they have people not paying them, staff not turning up. Any of this ringing any bells at all, Andrea?
Absolutely rings every bell with me. I'm looking forward to the people strategy when it comes, as to all of these issues that everyone's talked about and how we are going to address them, because I think everybody knows that we need to do so much, but what it looks like and how it's going to be. Obviously, we're just waiting, aren't we? But trainers are incredibly hard-working individuals who are also under the immense stress. I'm not vindicating any poor management, poor culture, poor behaviour or anything, because I'm absolutely dead against it all. Mentoring for trainers, coaching for trainers, jockeys we've got it right, I think, with the jockey coaching. We've got some fantastic coaches providing fantastic support. Maybe it's more coaching and mentoring and supporting.
And signposting.
And signposting. And then having the people there that can, be called in to come and provide help and support, on the legal front, on the employment law front, on the culture front, on the welfare front.
I've heard the word trainer a lot in this room today, and I have a huge empathy for trainers. I did a small piece of research identifying occupational stress for trainers. It was the first time anybody had even looked at the trainer in terms of research, and it took that piece of research took an emotional toll on me because of the stuff that I heard, and because of the pressure and the stress that trainers are under. They're as much a part of a very highly precarious system and probably hold more responsibility than anyone. So it is really need to understand their position as well. And I'm not condoning any bad behaviour at all, but where is bad behaviour coming from? Is the question. Why? Why do people talk like they do to each other at times?
Because it's been accepted and not challenged.
Yeah, there's that.
In the workplace,
of course.
And so there is a real need for a shift in culture and how we speak to each other and what is acceptable and what isn't acceptable. And there are massive training implications for that. But I think there's an appetite for it.
Yeah.
There's an appetite for it from the women in the industry on that front, but there's an appetite from your workers who are coming from other cultures and the cultures that they are bringing, and the kind of problems that they face. So it's all those kind of protected characteristics, and all the people who are coming from all those different perspectives, really.
And there is, in fact, an industry code of conduct.
Yeah.
Is there not? It was news to me. It was news to me until I did get some particularly excellent piece of abuse on the heath one day, and I thought, that is not okay. Why does anybody think that is okay? And I thought, well, I wonder if there is a code of conduct on this, because if there isn't, there should be. Anyway, there is.
And a lot of yards now using that as part of their induction process, which is a real step forward. And actually, in some bigger yards, that's been rolled out to everybody. So even though you now get it on induction, it's actually been backtracked to everybody else in the business, so that everyone knows what the new people are expecting, but also
what you should already be doing. So there's like great stuff, it's just how it's going to roll out, and that, you know, that's got to be the right people strategy, hasn't it?
Can I just say, I mean, we're talking very much about racing yards and studs, whereas I'm looking around this room and I'm guessing a large percentage of these people work in office-based jobs and not in yards. And I think the problems that people see in this room might be very different. You know, people have other challenges. I know we're lucky we work here at Godolphin. There's a pretty good culture in our office, I would say. And I'm guessing in lots of the other offices you work in, but there might still be things that affect women, whereas I think we're very much concentrating on the ground racing staff, which I know is the main part of it in some ways, but there's huge amount of employment in different areas in the racing and breeding industry, with very different challenges. I know from talking to people who work in racing that their challenges are very different to my challenges in the office environment. So, what are the challenges working in the offices? It's definitely not respect among colleagues and things. It's not things like that. It's not people not turning up. I think actually the biggest problem, I can only speak for myself here working in Godolphin, but I can see lots of people out there, that work here, it's actually career progression, because so many of the people like myself haven't moved on, and so they, you know, it's how do they find the next steps and things like that? And they've got lots of qualifications, very clever young people, and I will be retiring soon.
But you know, that glass ceiling is particularly on the stud side has been evidenced, hasn't it?
Yeah, I think they're very different challenges. Yeah.
Does the BHA have a kind of module, a kind of career progression modules that various, whichever stage you are at and whichever bit of the racing industry you're working in? Does it actually have an online kind of platform where you can go in and do some modules, get an MBQ, get a qualification, and move on?
There's the Racing to Learn platform where there's a lot of good information that I know of, and the Careers in Racing team, I think, considering the size of them, do a really great job in promoting careers in racing. And they have done some work around pathways. Racing to Learn.
Racing to Learn are really good modules that have gone.
Yeah. So there is some good stuff out there.
I think it has been identified. I mean, I spoke to the Racing Foundation fairly recently, and they agreed that there is a gap in the middle of the industry at the moment for that career progression. The people that have worked in the industry for 5-10 years, and they want to take the next step, but perhaps they don't know how to do it, or they feel they're lacking in experience in a particular area. We have brilliant systems like Flying Start and like the BHA graduate course, which are great for getting people initially in, but it's okay, where's the next step? How do you get your foot on the next rung on the ladder? So,
the good thing is that things like plugging my course again, that it's now got CPD points attached, so you accumulate 12 CPD points if you come along to that course, and it's like, and then you know the Racing to Learn courses, everything you now attend in the industry has the possibility to be accredited. So you can actually start building your own kind of career progression by finding the things that you're interested in, doing the courses, and then they are certified with the.
Are they online? I mean, can you add it to? So you've got your own account, as it were. Can you do that?
I don't think it. Basically, you pull together the CPD points from each course that you attend and evidence that you've attended it. But there's a huge gap, like health and safety courses, you know, the kind of the development of that. But everything is now having the points attached to then hopefully work with that, which I think's great.
Racing to Learn is your own login, and you do your own modules on the Racing to Learn, and it is with, if we do so many modules, you are sort of credited and looked at. The I think Racing Development Programme are doing something at the minute, aren't they? And looking at who's done most modules, who's done it all in a small period of time. So it's out there for everyone to log into the Racing to Learn and do just simple things like horse handling.
Yeah.
It's just a half-hour module that you can do online, and just do it, and it's just your own
free.
progression, and it's all free,
If
all
you
free.
work in the industry, it's free. You just ring up and
Get a login,
and get a login, and then it's free, and you can anything you're interested in.
But it's something you can access anytime.
Yeah.
And I would say, Sarah, I hope you back me up with this. Sarah and I have just done the 2-day mental health first aid course. There were 6 of us on that. That is highly subsidised by Racing Welfare. We talked about, the welfare, how people talk to you, how people are spoken to in the industry. 73 million work days are lost through people being unwell. Can we put those, we talked about the trainers, but actually people like Sarah, who are a great advocate for people coming to talk to, they would be better placed being out in the yards, the studs, the workplaces. BHA could, with the people board, could get a really easy win there, making that mandatory, that they have one person in every place, attends that 2-day course, it costs 80 quid, you've got a qualification, you can look after your staff. People aren't going to go to the trainer or your head of your studs with their struggles. They want to go to people like Sarah.
One of the biggest problems, and I'm with you, Amy, on that, and trying to get the places filled, because that course is actually normally worth about 400 quid now? 300-400 quid if you did it anywhere else. And as Amy said, it's subsidised by Race and Welfare to provide it for the industry. But why don't people go? Time, I suggest. Time. And that's right the way through. That's right the way through the board at that time. I mean, I was lucky enough to do the Thoroughbred Industry MBA. Yeah, this doesn't exist anymore. Why? Because nobody had the time to do it.
I done that course, and then I spoke to all of my friends and all of the people I worked for, and no one had heard of it.
Yeah.
So that was.
And what a shame.
And they said they would have gone if they would have known about it, and lots of people were upset because they didn't know about it.
Yeah.
But that was but you only find out about it if you follow Racing Welfare on Instagram or Facebook, but you don't actually find out about any otherwise. So
you're talking about the mental health course.
Yeah, so unless you're proactive yourself, you don't find out about it.
Or you've got a very good secretary or somebody on the yard who's going to pass this information on. Because the trainers, they're busy, they ain't going to pass the information on down to the staff. So how do you make it? How do you enable people? How do you enable people to attend those courses? Is the big question, I think, really. And everyone is going to say time. Yeah, they are going to say time. But I took the time out. I covered it. I took the time out, and the yard coped. They survived without me. I was on my phone. I was doing declarations. I was sorting things out, and I got 2 part-time members of staff to cover the 2 days I was away. It can be juggled. It can happen.
That's a cultural thing though, because just coming from a veterinary background, you have to do 35 hours a year of continuing professional development to maintain your licence. That's it. So you have to create 5 days from somewhere. Everybody has to do it. And everyone knows they have to do it. And sometimes it's a scratch and you have to leave the practice when you're really busy and the boss has to go. And everyone else has to cope. And it is just built in from day one. You've got to go on CPD. That's it.
But you make it work.
But everybody makes it work. And so because that's mandatory, it's just built into everybody's annual expectations.
You get reminders.
No, you don't, and you get audited by the Royal College of Veterinary Surgeons if you're not careful.
And it's the same for so many other counselling, solicitors.
Yeah, and I think that we're just not in that mindset. But when you think about it, Sarah, and you say, I did this for 2 days and everybody coped.
Yeah, me coming off the yard for 2 days, and it was typical. Tuesday morning, the BHA rock up, you're up for a random drug test for the horses. I flew past the yard, pulled in, and rig on, got everything out of the medicine, but I delegated it straight away, dealt with it. John had steam come out of his ears, flopping around the place, but the staff loved it because I delegated straight out to them. They all stepped up, as they do any time. Like, I'm here today, they've all going to have stepped up, dealt with the thing, and I'll go back, we'll have a chat, we'll have some cake, and I'll go, thanks guys for everything. And they get empowered by it. And they feel better. That's why you're the leadership and they are, and they feel better for it themselves. And like with me winning the awards. And the girls have come to me on the yard and gone, we want that. We want it, we want a bit of that, we want to have that, and recognition and everything. So you can take the time out. It can be done. But that's what you hear from people all the time. I mean, we used to put those courses on, didn't we? And it's devastating to put a course on like that, to have 4 people express an
and
interest.
Doing something that's going to hopefully change the culture, have somebody looking out for others. You know, we know exactly when something's wrong with our horses, if they're not right, but yeah, we work alongside these staff all the time.
Needs to be a bit more of a thoughtful intervention.
Yeah.
I think.
Yeah.
Is anybody going to speak about TBA Ed?
If you want me to.
Yes, please.
Yeah, just on the subject of online education, or if people want to do courses, just like Racing to Learn, or BHA have Racing to Learn for the racing industry, there is TBA for the breeding industry. It's free to register, and there's lots of free resources that you can access in both the people management and the horse management side of it, under the context of the breeding industry. But blatant plug, if you do join the TBA, then everything on there is free, and there are about £3,000 worth of courses. But if anyone wants any more information, I'll happily bang on about it. Well, I do have a question, if that's okay.
Yeah.
So my background before I came into the industry was in rugby union, refereeing, especially officiating in the pro game, and I still coach and mentor male and female referees at the international level, both for England rugby and world rugby. And I know you mentioned quite openly that racing is a long way behind, still got a lot to learn, and I think if you're familiar with rugby union, you'll probably remember a very famous quote about it being run by 57 old farts years ago by Will Carling, and that was true, and rugby went on and is still on a very transitional journey about evolving the sport. You know, racing faced the social licence issues, rugby faced concussion issues and player welfare issues. And I see a lot of similarities of the journey that racing is on to how rugby has had to evolve. But I think one of the really impactful key things that I learned with regard to the explosion of the sport from the women's participation, and then more selfishly from female referees, and we talked about the hashtag see it be it. I don't think that growth would have happened had it not been for male advocacy and for males not only advocating the role of females and the impact that we can have in officiating, but also in calling out and being prepared to challenge bad behaviour, inappropriate behaviour. So my question to the panel would be, do you think racing does enough to support or identify male advocates, or could that we do more in that? Because that visibility, certainly in broadcast, certainly in media, was very powerful in helping empower women into decision-making roles, but also to increase participation.
I think that's a really well-made point. I completely agree with you. In other sort of worlds and industries, it's the male dual parent families. It's when the man leaves the meeting early because his children need him that he then empowers all of the women in the room to do the same thing. And I've seen that. I think the best thing I ever did for sort of female empowerment in companies I worked for was to have one male director become the only overseas expat in the company because his wife got a better job in California. And we encouraged Max that we would find a way of him being able to work remotely from California because we thought his wife Anna needed to take the job that she'd been offered by Google in the US. And by doing that and helping him be flexible, actually we said more about our attitude to flexible working for women than anything. So I've lived what you've described, and you've made me think. I suspect I need to sort of get some of my members, some of my maybe elderly white male members, to be thinking about how, because actually I think they want to, often they don't quite know how to, and they also suffer from imposter syndrome and feel terrified about walking into a room like this to talk about it. So I think that's a really, really well-made point that we could all think about. How do we adopt a male ally to help us, a male ally in a position of authority in racing, and give them the courage, because often that's all they need is a little bit of courage to speak out.
Yeah. Great. Well, I think we have overrun quite a bit, so I know we're a little bit late starting, so I think I'm probably going to wrap it all up there now, but thank you very much to the panel. Everybody, well deserved round of applause. And obviously, thank you very much as well to Godolphin for hosting us all today. I think you can all agree it's been fantastic. And thank you to all of you for attending. These events don't work. Like I said, it's very demoralising. You put on events and nobody turns up. So it's brilliant that you. I was terrified. This is the first event I've organised for women in racing, and I'm thrilled that it's.